Hello and welcome to the Your Financial Pharmacist Real Estate Investing Podcast, a show all about empowering pharmacists to achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. I'm Nate Hedrick, and each week, my co-host David Bright and I explore stories from pharmacists all over the country who are achieving their real estate goals while maintaining a meaningful career in pharmacy. Whether you're a first-time investor or a seasoned pro, we're here to provide education and inspiration about the world of real estate. Please note, this podcast is intended for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial or investment advice. Hey, David, how's it going?
Hey, good, thanks. How you doing, man?
Good. It's been a busy week. I just got done helping an investor close on a property. We watched him get some pretty good timing on a rate lock, so that was a nice surprise. And it's, again, just been a busy week. It's been good.
Yeah, for folks that locked in their interest rate a month or two ago, and with rates moving as quickly, like now looking back on it, I mean, they did pretty well. We just got a property under contract here, but it doesn't look like we're going to be nearly as lucky with how rates have been, even just the past few days, going way up into the 7% range, which, who knows? A year from now, we may look back on this and say like, oh, 7%, that's fine. But yeah, from where we're sitting right now, where we were getting 3s and 4s and 5s not too long ago, this just feels like a very different market.
It's tricky. You have to not look at what you could have done 6 months ago or 10 months ago, right? It's super easy to be a good investor if you can look 12 months back. Like, you just have to look at the rates today and make sure the deals still work. And who knows where it'll be, right? If it's lower in 2 years, great, we'll refinance. If it's higher, you'll be saying, oh, good thing I invested at 7. So there's no way to know what the future holds. You just got to make sure you're buying deals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I'm a pharmacist through and through, so I'm trying to read and watch, right? I know
Right.
you are too. So, and we're both trying to make conservative moves and keep conservative options in front of us. So I know for me, that's looking at lower priced properties, so that if interest rates really shift or even values shift in a negative direction, it's a little bit less impacting than higher priced properties. But you're right. There's no crystal ball. There never is with any kind of investing, right? You have to pay attention, you have to look around, and then you have to make informed decisions knowing your risk tolerance and what that allows you to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's precisely what we got with today's guest. We were lucky enough to get the chance to talk with Lindsay McLaughlin. She is a former registered nurse, a serial mompreneur, which I love that terminology. She is all about her kids and finding a way to make her entrepreneurial life fit in with her mom life. And I just think she's an incredible person. You'll get to hear a lot about where she moved away from nursing into real estate investing full time and how she found a pretty incredible niche in the residential living, assisted living space, which I just think is a super unique space to be in. And I'm glad we got to learn more about it.
Yeah, it's cool. She started out doing some wholesaling and then went to flipping from there. And she even talks about how it was not all unicorns and rainbows, right? Like, she had some hiccups early on and she lost some money early on, and a lot of lessons. And so that's part of that risk tolerance. Just figure out what that risk tolerance is and move forward as that allows. And it allowed her to kind of, by trying out a few things, land on this residential assisted living niche. And so that seems to be a great fit for her because it's healthcare focused and caring for others focused. It's also real estate. And so in that is kind of two different businesses. One is owning that building, and then one is the business of the residential assisted living, and something where she's learned how to excel in both areas.
Yeah, I really think that most of the audience, hopefully you guys take away from this what I did, which was that, it's a cool blend of healthcare, pharmacy, and real estate investing. Just what we talk about every single day, but she's doing it in practice in real life. And she did a really great job of giving a high level overview of just some of the common questions or some of the things that you might want to know about the space if you're even considering it. Again, the space that I've never looked into before, but she was able to really articulate, here are some of the things that you can do. You don't need to own the business and the building, or you can just pick one or the other. Or it was really great to get some insight from somebody who's done so much of this and can really explain it to ourselves and to the audience out here.
Yeah, and even if this is not something you're necessarily considering, I really like she has some really good nuggets in there about networking and the value that networking brings, particularly when it comes to finding contractors and finding lenders and finding opportunity and just learning, like, the value of networking. I mean, we just can't echo that enough. So I feel like that's really good, even if you're not even remotely considering residential assisted living as an investment opportunity. There's some great content that she was able to bring as far as just investing in general in real estate.
All right, well, we'll take you guys to the show. Hope you enjoy. Hey, Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So excited to have you on today. We've got a ton to talk about. Just really excited about your background and what you're doing in the real estate space. And so, just again, a pleasure to have you here. Why don't we jump right in, kick us off, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I am currently a mom of four, another little one on the way next month. Happily married in Cincinnati, Ohio, born and raised here in Cincinnati. I was a caregiver through college, then became a nurse. And I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Didn't really know where that was going to lead me, but knew I wanted to do something in the entrepreneurial world. So I always had different side gigs. And then I ended up quitting my job completely. Actually, I was a surgical nurse and I quit when I was like 6 months out from having my second baby because I really wanted to be a mom too, right? Like not just the entrepreneur thing, but I wanted to be mom. And working in surgery, a lot of times I felt like I wasn't being mom. So that was a big thing. So quit kind of cold turkey and jumped right in on a leap of faith to real estate investing. And through that, we did all kinds of creative financing things, flips, rentals, notes, different things. And that led us to assisted living. So through the past 7 years or so, now we've been doing assisted living, building a business from the ground up, and that's expanded. And I'm happy to tell you more about that. But yeah, that's a little bit of my story. Does that sum it up?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's very cool. And we certainly talk with people that have that journey through different flavors of real estate investing along the way, and they try different things and they end up at something. So I definitely want to get to the residential assisted living in a minute, but I kind of want to talk through that journey as well. So I'm curious, when you first quit, or maybe even before you quit, perhaps you were getting into real estate investing earlier, but I'm curious, what was that first thing that you got started with, and kind of what was the next step from there?
Yeah, the first step was a wholesale deal. That was terrible. It was a terrible failure.
Oh
But,
no.
like you're quitting your job. You're like, we're all in. First wholesale deal, I lost 5,000. I'm like, no, what am I
Oh no.
doing?
Oh no.
Yeah. But I learned. The next one I failed too. And I learned. And yeah, so I started with wholesaling and then got into the flips, which was great.
And for those that may not be as familiar with wholesaling, could you walk someone through just the very basics of what wholesaling is and how that was kind of one feasible way? I know a lot of people get started that way. How that worked for you as a way to get started?
Yeah, I mean, wholesaling is basically finding a deal and getting it under contract and then assigning it like somebody else purchasing the house. So I go and find a deal, and then I also find a buyer for the deal and I put my fee into it. So going through RIA groups and networking and meeting a bunch of other people in the real estate space, that provided me a lot of opportunities to be able to build my buyer list, to make connections, and really learn and understand too how to go out and find these deals. If you say to somebody, "Oh, just go be a wholesaler," like, who do I call? What do I do? Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So diving into that education and making sure you have connections was definitely important.
No, and I know that's a very common way that people jump in and get started because, yes, looking for those real estate investing deals and then finding a way to play matchmaker and find a buyer for that seller and then finding some value in between there, that can definitely work. But then you went from there into fix and flips where you ended up being that buyer rather than passing that on. You took on that deal and then decided to work it through yourself.
Yep. Yeah. So we had a number of flips going on. And it was helpful. My husband is in construction. So he was either GCing them or doing a lot of the work himself or ourselves. Or you have a GC that fails. I don't even want to call him a GC, but
Oh
a
no.
contractor that fails or doesn't show, and then you're going back in and fixing the work anyway. So yeah, so we jumped into doing the flips, and I would say the most challenging part about those was finding the funding at the time. That kept things really interesting. Is just the finding those funding partners and being able to close on the deals that you wanted to close on.
Yeah, that's something that I want to touch on. And so I'm glad you brought it up. Whenever we see someone that has this level of growth, I think one of the questions that comes to mind for a lot of our listeners is, well, how the heck did they fund that? Like, how did you pay for that? Did you just save up a bunch of down payments and then you're there, 25% down every time? And usually the answer is no, but I'll throw it back to you, Lindsay. What did that look like? What were some of the creative financing things that you guys were able to do, or how did you achieve that?
Working with a couple different private investors, that was helpful. And also at the time, it was way easier to pick up cheaper deals. And especially being in Ohio, you could pick up deals pretty cheaply. I was actually looking today at some deals in a neighborhood I had done stuff in back 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And the price difference was just insane. Still just a very blue collar. I was very surprised at that. But yeah, so funding, so working with some private investors, just knowing some people that would be interested in lending to us, and us working out interest rates with them and how we would pay them back. A really great thing for us, though, was finding a local bank that was real estate investor friendly. That made all the difference in the world. You're not going to a US bank or one of these big ones, but finding a local bank, one branch, and that's what they do. They just work with real estate investors. So that was huge for us. They took a chance on us, and we still work with them, actually.
And did you find them through the RIA that you mentioned earlier, or through another investor, or just Googling around? Like, what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think it was people just talking, because we had talked to a number of other local banks. And now, like how we started our assisted living was working with a different local bank. But yeah, just talking to people and hearing what they were doing. Yes, that's very helpful. But also getting on the phone, right? Like how many random phone calls you got to make, or just making calls. You're going to be told no a whole bunch of times until you find that yes.
A great reminder that those connections are so important, and that one of the best ways to just dive into your local market is to dive into your local market. Talk to people who are actually there doing it already, and you'd be surprised what you can find out. I love that. Great tip.
Yes. I'm a huge, huge advocate for networking. You can never get enough value from networking, effective networking, and knowing what you're going into a meeting to accomplish, not in a selfish way, but having that ask in mind. Not going in just like, wonder what's going to happen here today. No, but I'm here because I need to meet somebody that can solve 1, 2, and 3 of my problems. And then as you're talking to people, you find those people, right? Or they know somebody that they can send to you. And yeah, networking is huge. It's pivotal.
Yeah, and there's certainly problems to be solved when you're house flipping. Like that is definitely work as well. And so it sounds like it's very helpful that you had a husband in the construction business as well. That so between the two of you, you're able to jump in and do that, and that presumably made things a little easier as well. But that's still a pretty far distance from residential assisted living. So I'm curious how you connected those dots from going from house flipping then to residential assisted living, and what that journey continued into.
Yeah. So doing the flipping, doing some notes, and like I said, some creative financing deals and stuff, which was really cool. I was really interested in that space, the creative financing space. So I heard of a seminar actually in LA. So we went out there. It was this really small seminar, but it paid off because the one guy was up there just talking about residential assisted living, gave his little 20-minute spiel. My husband and I looked at each other and we're like, oh my gosh, this checks all the boxes. We wanted to help people. And that's why we were doing a lot of creative financing, because we were able to actually help people get into homes. So we're able to help people. I can use my nursing background. He can build. We know construction. We got this. This is like real estate, and this is everything like tied together, and also really financially rewarding. So let's do it. And we left LA with a bunch of different ideas and jumped right in.
So give us the 10,000-foot view then. What, for those who've never heard of this, what is residential assisted living? How does it work? What are the basics?
Yep. So residential assisted living is basically an assisted living. So you're providing those activities of daily living, your meals, your medications, all that basic stuff that people need, and more, a lot of love and all that. And it's typically in a setting from 4 to 24 beds. So it's not one of your big box facilities that you see. It can be just a single family home. Our homes are 16 bedrooms. So when you come in, it's very intimate. and warm and cozy and very family oriented. Basically just providing care to the elderly in a private pay kind of a setting, and where it's 4 to 24 beds.
Yeah, meals and meds and love and care. I like that a lot. That's very cool. Then that sounds like a lot of folks that we talk with are in kind of the long-term buy and hold rental space, oftentimes single family homes or small multifamily homes. It sounds like while it could go in that direction, if you're looking at 16 beds and you're looking at presumably a lot of staff, there's some additional moving parts here. So can you walk us through that management piece? Because that feels a lot more management intensive than someone signs a lease and you check in on them once every 6 months.
For sure. To actually operate the assisted living business, absolutely. I mean, your staffing, we all know how that goes. The meals and the meds and everything else that is involved with really helping people have that quality of life the remainder of their time, cleaning, all of that kind of stuff. Yes, the operation piece is huge. There's a lot. Can somebody do that and be passive? Absolutely. And that's what I really try to help people do now. That's what I've been doing for more than a year now is we actually traveled full time in an RV for a year. So it can definitely be done where you have that and you're not hands on, but establishing it is, you've got to be creative on how you do that. However, in this space too are investors or people that just own the real estate, or you have the whole thing and you just get a management company in place to run the actual operation. So there are definitely ways to be an investor, be very passive, and still be in this space and make money.
So if I'm understanding correctly, there's really the real estate itself, but then there's also the business, the operations aspect within that property. And so that's the caring for the individuals that live there. And then there's the caring for the building part that is more of what I think people traditionally think of in the real estate side. So this is merging those two, the caring for individuals and the real estate itself.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so with that being said, like, just so I can elaborate on that a little bit, even what I teach or what we do, if you're operating, that's one entity, right? And then you have the real estate, which is a whole separate entity. So you're still leasing, whether you're leasing from yourself or leasing from someone else, because you have people that want to just operate and they just have a business and they need to find somebody that owns a piece of property that will lease to them. That's nationwide that's happening. Or like I said, then you have the investor who owns the property and wants to have that business as well. But yes, you can certainly own a piece of property and still just be a landlord to the company coming in.
So talk me through, I'm picturing this. You guys are coming home from the seminar in LA, all these great ideas. You know the space you want to be in. Do you go out and you buy a pre-existing place first? Did you start it from scratch? Like, if I'm somebody that wants to get rolling in this, what's an easy baby step into it? Or is there no baby step? You have to just jump in, both feet and both hands.
So you asked us about coming home from the seminar and jumping right in, which is what we did. We found a house in a great part of town. There wasn't one there. The city was all in. We got it under contract. We were pretty close. Like, we were going to do a whole rehab on it, renovate the garage and all that. We were going to make basically a 3-2 home with a detached garage into a 10-bedroom RAL.
Wow.
Residential assisted living.
Wow.
Sitting on like a half-acre, normal suburb town. We were pretty pumped about it. Then our funding fell through last minute. We didn't put the right contingencies in place on the contract, so we lost $10,000 in the down payment and had to walk away from that house. So again, was it a failure? Yes, but there's always a but, right? But we learned. And yes, so can you do that? Absolutely, 100%. You could jump right in and go find a house and do all that. We ended up having land, so we decided to go with the building approach, so went that route. So then to answer the second part of your question, you said, can somebody jump right into this? How does that look? So you certainly can. And that's what one of our businesses is now, actually, is helping people get into this with way fewer barriers of entry. And that looks different from a number of ways. If it's somebody that's just wanting to invest and they want to be completely hands off, well, there's certainly opportunities for that. And certainly people that need those funds, right? So we can connect the dots for that. And somebody can get right in and just be completely passive. So if somebody is wanting to jump in to this space and they find it really interesting and do all their due diligence on it, there are definitely options. You could be going out and calling on already licensed homes. You can find those licensed residential assisted living homes online. So you could be going out, see if anybody's interested in selling and buy something like that. You could be looking for, we could go way more in depth in this, but you could be looking for a property that would suit several people to make it more of that quote unquote group home. I'm really not an advocate for anything under 8 beds. However, there are tons of them that are successful all over the country that are 5, 6, 7 beds. So if somebody was just going out and looking, okay, could this home, it's a single family home, talking about the HOA, everything's okay there. And it's a ranch and there's a connected garage and we could make this easily into 8 bedrooms. Somebody can jump right into that as well. Or looking at even commercial spaces. I'm not against commercial with this. A lot of people hear residential and they think only single family. But you go into a commercial thing, think of how many adult daycares closed down through COVID or a lot of these other places. So we're actually renovating an adult daycare right now to become a residential assisted living. So it's commercial, but we'll be marketing it as a residential assisted living because it will look and feel like a home. It's just a commercial piece of property.
I love it. I think it's such a complicated space if you've not experienced it or not lived in it before. I think it's great to get some background from somebody who's done so much of it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think those of us in healthcare are kind of used to all the rules and regulation of healthcare, right? And so I'm anticipating that there's some maybe zoning considerations, or you mentioned licensure. So it sounds like it's more complicated than just buy a house and start renting it out to people. What are some of those details and things that someone would need to pay attention to?
So let me preface this by saying there are plenty of unlicensed RALs out there across the country.
Okay.
I will not advocate for that, right? Again, coming from healthcare, we got to follow some regs and make sure we're compliant and okay. No, I don't like following rules, but with some of this, you have to. So people do operate unlicensed, or in several states too, you can even have 3 residents and still not be licensed, and they actually will allow that, and that's okay. So there is that. If you're going to build this up to really be, profit generating and where you can have partners and have a lot of different opportunities, absolutely getting licensed. So yeah, there's definitely things with zoning and with getting all those permits and all of that kind of stuff. Definitely. One thing, if you find a property that is interesting to you, one of the first things you need to do is call into that township or into that city and see what they approve. And a lot of times there ends up being education around it. If you're saying you want 8 non-related individuals living in a home, they're like, ooh, group home, we don't have that here. Well, wait a second, these are seniors, they're not driving and all this other kind of stuff. And you go and you can present and a lot of times get that approved. So there is that whole process. Yes. Zoning, of course, if you were building from the ground up and all that, getting that changed. And also, we've changed too from being like an R1, what we were going to be doing, to being an R4 and then a certain building too. Building codes. My husband heard me in there. Yep. So there's definitely a process with all of that. And then as far as licensure goes, again, it's all online. The states put it out there on what those regs are and what you need to do to become licensed. And they have a lot of forms and a lot of information. So by following that and taking the proper steps, you can go through that process. If you're building from the ground up, you got to wait for your CO to even apply, your certificate of occupancy, to even be able to apply and have a lot of other boxes checked and have all of your policies and procedures in place. And so getting your licensure is definitely a big step. It's a big deal and it's ongoing because then the state can be popping in anytime. Then you got to have annuals or every 2 years they come to survey. Ombudsman could stop by anytime, as well as other governing parties, OSHA and all that. So as you know.
Yeah. So definitely a notch more complicated in terms of management than the typical long-term rental or vacation rental kind of things that people are probably familiar with. But it does present an opportunity then to care for people as a part of this. So there's definitely that kind of human aspect in this investing as well.
Absolutely. I've heard that several times this week, actually, as kind of a new thing, but bringing that humanity into your investing. Absolutely. So yeah, so you're definitely caring for people. And again, investors can do this and have other people that are actually the operators and actually doing all of that piece where they don't have to be concerned. Not that they're not concerned, but they're not the ones figuring all those regs out.
I love it. Really quick, I know, again, one of the other pieces we wanted to touch on was just, what this looks like in terms of an actual investment too. So what are some of the numbers that we're dealing with on some of these properties? I know, a typical single family home here in Ohio might rent from $1,000 anywhere to $3,000, but what are we looking at for something like this in the residential assisted living space?
Yep. So the national average for assisted living is about $4,000 per bed.
Per month, right?
Per month, yes. So per resident per month. Now, again, with that, let's just assume it's an all-inclusive type of thing. So that's providing their meals, their care, and everything else. So you're looking at, let's just say on average, like a 30 to 40. So let's just go with a 35% profit margin on what they're paying. And that's after you're getting it up and running, right? Not on your first couple residents and all that, but after you're getting up and running and you get past that threshold, about 35% profit margin. When you get into this residential assisted living piece, we're looking at a little bit more like the higher clientele. It is all private pay most of the time. Like we did get approved for the waiver, so that after somebody's privately paying for so long, then you can do a Medicaid type thing. But putting that aside, you're charging anywhere from usually like $5,000 to $8,000, $8,500 a month, just depending on your location and really everything you're offering. So yeah, to be charging $6,000 per month per resident is pretty typical in most areas. Like I said, think of that like 35% profit margin after expenses and all that in the operation. Yeah. So think about it as, if you have 10 beds, if you've got 16 beds, how that looks.
Yeah. And of course it's not the typical residential real estate expenses, right? You've got people to hire, food to buy, everything is your expense all of a sudden too. So it's not apples to apples, but that's interesting to get that perspective and the dollars that are going into that. That's great.
Yeah, definitely expenses. And if it's a rough month with staffing, then obviously your staffing is going to be way more because you're utilizing agency and you're offering a lot of bonuses and all that other kind of stuff. So, I never like to go into this telling everybody, oh, it's rainbows and butterflies, because it definitely can be challenging, but it can also be very rewarding. And then, from the tax perspective, if you own the real estate and the business, how you're offsetting the financials, running it through the real estate, right? And that's taxed differently than if it was just the business. So
I love that. It's great to get that perspective. And again, I'm sure you're facing some challenges with staffing right now. And it's truly a full-fledged business at that point. It's not just a real estate investment anymore, which is great.
True.
Well, hey, I want to take us, Lindsay, to our final infusion questions. 3 questions we ask every guest on the show. Get your take on these.
Ooh, okay.
The very first one is, you're in the hot seat now. You ready? So the first question is, what's one tangible strategy that you use to make sure that your investing works hand in hand with the rest of your life as a mom?
I would say, yes, prioritizing my life is my top priority. Having my kids, having that freedom of time, my flexibility, that is everything for me. So when looking at different deals and different things now, it's what can we do to keep profiting to where I'm feeling really good and really excited about what we're doing. And it's benefiting others, but also where I can keep my priorities of my kids and my time in check. We're looking at a lot of different things right now, but utilizing the OPM, utilizing other people's money more, and how to delegate more as well.
That's great.
That's a big piece of it. How other people can be doing some of the work for you.
Absolutely. Particularly with a business as busy as this. It's one thing to get a long-term rental and hire a property manager and set it and forget it. But for this, it sounds like definitely having the right people on the team and managing that well. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I said, with the new business that we're doing, where we're actually helping others get started in this and setting them up for success as operators and connecting the dots with other investors and that whole piece, it's really delegating. Okay, somebody is responsible for setting up the operators for X, Y, and Z. We've got a course. We have a course that is automated, and doing those kinds of things to where we can really scale and grow, but keeping my time in check.
Love it. Second question is, what's one resource that's been most helpful to you in your journey, whether that's a book, a podcast, a person, an author, a website, whatever that would be?
Yes, all of the above. Is that one?
Everything you can get your hands on.
I'm just a big advocate, and you got to be filling your brain. You got to be filling your brain all the time with good stuff. What are you focused on? What are you wanting to grow in and achieve? And fill your brain with that. If you're like, yes, I want to do real estate investing, and you're picking up a book once every 2 weeks, it's going to be pretty slow. It takes a whole right mindset too into thinking differently than you may have been taught in school type of thing. So filling your brain consistently with great podcasts like this, getting great ideas. Like I said before, networking. Networking to me has probably been the catalyst to everything. Even if you're not getting actual referrals, you still use networking for all of your other resources.
And it's just amazing what happens when you start to talk to people doing what you want to be doing, how quickly you're able to just elevate yourself to doing that. And it's just a almost force of will by just being around those individuals and engaging with them. So I completely agree with you and cannot advocate enough for that networking piece. It's great.
And the thing with networking too, I'm sorry, I keep talking about networking, but the thing the thing with networking is you're taking action as well. You are forced to talk to people. You're taking action. If you're just reading books, just listening to podcasts, you're just listening, that's great to take in all that knowledge. But taking all that knowledge in doesn't produce any income. That doesn't produce results. That doesn't produce phone calls. You have to take action. So by going out and networking, that's taking action.
That's a great point. All right, then our last question. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to a professional that's contemplating a start in real estate investing?
Do it. Just do it. Right? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You lose a little bit of money. There's always more of it to go obtain. You'll be all right. You'll probably learn a lot, and then your next deal will be even better. But jump into something. It's another stream of income. Real estate investing isn't going anywhere. And in fact, I think there's going to be a boom of opportunities here coming up. So yeah, get started somewhere. Do a JV. Utilize your self-directed IRA. Take some kind of a route that's not going to really offset you to where you're not sleeping at night. It's not worth that. But there's so many opportunities out there where you can sleep peacefully and be moving towards those goals.
Love it. That's great advice. For people that have been listening, they like what you're saying, they want to reach out and learn more. Where can people find you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So you can reach me on Instagram is a really great opportunity. I'm the Mompreneur Life 101 on there. The business where we're helping others into the real estate or into the residential assisted living world is raloptimized.com. And we have a whole lot of opportunity there. So if you're really interested in that space and getting started in real estate investing from that regard, definitely check that website out and send us a message through there.
Awesome. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. We'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. I'm sure people their heads are spinning now with ideas about things we haven't talked about on the show before. So again, really nice to have you to share that message and learn a little bit more about residential assisted living. It's been awesome.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast. If you like what you heard on today's show, please leave us a review and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. If you have a question, know someone that would make a good guest, or want to connect with Nate or David, head on over to yfprealestate.com and join the growing YFP Real Estate Investing Facebook group. As we conclude this week's episode of the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast, an important reminder that the content in this podcast is provided to you for your informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. Information in the podcast and corresponding materials should not be construed as a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any investment or related financial products. We urge listeners to consult with a financial advisor with respect to any investment. Furthermore, the information contained in our archived newsletters, blog posts, and podcasts is not updated and may not be accurate at the time you listen to it on this podcast. Opinions and analyses expressed herein are solely those of your financial pharmacist, unless otherwise noted, and constitute judgments as of the dates published. Such information may contain forward-looking statements which are not intended to be guarantees of future events. Actual results could differ materially from those anticipated in the forward-looking statements. For more information, please visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer. Thank you for your support of the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast. Have a great rest of your week.